Welcome to the Coach's Corner. Coach Clarence is an entrepreneur, financial expert, and passionate about helping people build and market their business. He has a creative flair for thinking outside the box and is always looking for the positive side of life. Now, here's Coach Clarence.
What is going on? What is good, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Coach's Corner. And today I have Stephen Avent. I always like to get interesting people in, and this gentleman definitely has an interesting story. He is a coach, a lifestyle coach. But what I found interesting that he is an elite level dog coach. And he said something interesting that if he could train people like dogs, he'd be doing a lot better. So I'm definitely want to get into that. Stephen, how my show flows is I let people just say who they are, how they get to where they are up to this point, and then we'll dive in. So thank you for being on and welcome.
Thank you for having me. So as I said, my name is Stephen Avent. I'm with My Brother's Keeper Coaching. I basically got into this because, like a lot of people that get into coaching, I struggled with a lot of things in my life. I found a path that was able to bring me to the place that I'm at now. And once I saw the benefit that came from that, I couldn't help but share it with others. Gotcha. It just so happened to tie into the past 2 decades or upwards of 2 decades of my life where I was training dogs, and I saw the similarities. You know, when I went into this path, I recognized how much of the knowledge that I developed over the years really transferred in and help me get ahead in my process. So I saw how that could then help me share with others.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned people who get into this field of coaching, you had some trauma. Let's talk a little bit about some of that trauma early on and how you parlayed that into what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on where you want me to touch with that. From childhood, you know, I was raised with a sick parent. I was exposed to a situation when I was very young, one of my earliest childhood memories, where I watched my mother have her first grand mal seizure, and I thought that I was the cause of this and that she was dying. So, you know, the mental influence that had on me, in part, stole my voice. And then that continued to sort of develop down that path of me learning to avoid basically putting out what it is that I felt inside in order to avoid potential consequences of it from my surroundings. And this went through to, you know, being raised by a father and a stepfather that both, you know, put together. I used to say I would have had the best dad in the world if I could have taken the best parts from both of them. But on the flip side of that, I suppose if you took the worst parts from both of them, I would have probably had one of the worst dads too. So you know, although I was able to grow from a lot of the things that I received from them, there were a lot of things that I had to process because of that too. And one of the primary ones being, you know, really developing a viewpoint of what a man was that is not one that I currently hold today. You know, I was raised with the belief that men should basically be violent, chase women, do drugs, sell drugs. You know, it was not the mindset and the upbringing that I would wish on today's youth, you know, and it's not one that I luckily still carry. And instead, I was able to sort of grow past a lot of these beliefs and really develop myself to be the man that I am today and the man that I always needed in my life so that I can then be that person for others.
Okay. So the dog training, which I think is fascinating. Talk a little bit about how you got into training dogs, how you led up to that, and what are some unique things that dogs share in common with people?
So basically, I got into training dogs because I owned a few dogs since the day I moved out. I moved out when I was 18, and one of the first things I did was I went and bought a little red-nosed pit bull.
Yeah.
I did not give that dog a single command until he was 6 months old. I had no idea what I was doing. And I got lucky because he was overall a good dog, but he was also a very dominant dog, and he got me in a lot of trouble. So from there, I sort of realized after years that I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't want to keep falling into the same patterns of buying these dogs, learning a little bit as I go. You know, I did some sort of local training that really didn't do much. But then I recognized that I needed to really step it up if I wanted to own dogs like this, because I had to be more of an ambassador for these breeds because so many people are really ruining their reputations. And from there, I found a company in the States, based out of South Carolina, and I worked alongside, at the time, my master trainer for 3.5 years, learning thorough elite level obedience, advanced obedience, and protection training, alongside with basically behavioral modification and aggression control. From there, I sort of ran with it on my own. I bred and continued to train dogs for the following 16 years, where I really rounded my knowledge. And then as I transitioned into coaching, dogs and people really have fundamental similarities, because the primary difference being that we're a reasoning species and we have this free will.
Yeah.
But on our basic level, we are imprinting on our children on a regular basis, which would be similar to what we're doing with puppies. And then as they grow, they test boundaries and they figure out what is expected of them in their life. And then they typically try to navigate the easiest path, the path of least resistance. And this is just a way of conserving energy. We continue to do this as adults, but if we're raised to think that we can get away with stuff, then that is what we do. But if we flip that and we raise, whether it's a dog or a child, to think that when you are doing your best, you will get your best reward, then that's what they start doing. And so the difference is, when I'm training a dog opposed to when somebody else is that I am not allowing for any unwanted behaviors to be developed. Mm-hmm. So what they realize is that they will never get away with anything that is inappropriate, but instead, when they do what is beneficial for them, which is also in turn what I want, is when they get maximum reward. They get more freedom, they get more praise, they get more toys, more, physical rewards. And so in turn, this is what they start doing. And the same thing comes with us. As we start developing into a positive lifestyle, we start recognizing all the benefits that come along with this. And then we no longer want to go into the negative behaviors because we see them for the toxicity that they really are.
Excellent. I noticed on the your information, you talked about some infidelity. And what I like to do, because traditionally when there's infidelity, people try to shame the person. What I try to do is ask the why, so that people can learn from those situations. So talk a little bit about why you had some infidelity in your relationship, and what did you learn from it?
So I guess this could go back quite a few years. It depends on what stage we're talking about here. On one end, when I go back far enough, the reality is where I sort of touched on, is that I was raised to believe that this was just part of being a man. I thought that this was a normal behavior and one that didn't really bring any negative, as long as he didn't get caught. Now, as I developed past that mental, space, I realized that it does, because when you're being dishonest with somebody else and somebody that you've given, a promise to, you're being dishonest to yourself. And this is going to lower your internal value, regardless of what it is that you're perceiving on the outside. It is inherently going to happen inside simultaneously. So, at these various stages in my life, I would say that there were belief systems in place that needed to mature. At points, there were inabilities to leave relationships just out of immaturity once again. And so instead of, owning my place and walking away, I just did what I wanted at the time. And a lot of this did come down to being in a broken phase of my life. Often I was drinking heavily, I was doing drugs, and I was not really in a good mental, emotional, or physical place in my life. And so that, sort of came out in the relationships.
See.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're now a coach. You start to see those habits in other people. You're able to parlay these stories and talk about developing them. So what do you think, besides what you said, touched on, but do you think there is some insecurity there? Do you think that it is maybe you're seeking attention from women because something is missing in you? Or do you think it was just, hey, this is fun, she's pretty, I'm attracted, and I'm just going to do what I can?
So something that I've sort of developed to realize is that I think that there's a few fundamental reasons why people do this. And often I think we're getting people that are still stuck in their core energy center. And this would be strictly sexual. And in that case, if you're stuck in that place, I think you're often coming from a very broken and negative reason behind what you might be doing. And so you're going to be pursuing women for your own sake. That could be just lust. It could be that your ego needs boosting. It could be that you're damaged and you're seeking attention or affection that you're not getting elsewhere, or not enough, or there is no enough for you. Now, I do think that there are people out there that live in lifestyles that may not be typical to our society, but they might be coming from more of their heart center, and this might be a place of love, and this is going to be more open, though. This is not going to be hidden, behind closed doors and sort of hurting people, but instead coming from a fuller place. So I do think that, the individual reason is going to be reflective of the individual in the situation. But I do think that the majority of society is doing this for one reason or another that is negative and not doing anybody any good. And it's something that needs to be recognized and developed past.
All right. So you're a lifestyle coach. Are you training people or coaching people in fitness? Are you coaching them on relationships? What exactly do you coach in?
So lifestyle, that really includes everything. And so sure. Mindset and lifestyle would be the full term, because without the mindset being in place, nothing else is going to stick. But it does come full circle where I'm definitely incorporating fitness in that. I'm incorporating proper nutrition. And then that combination, that trifecta of building that proper mindset, the nutrition and the fitness sort of work together to develop your overall value system. And then from there, we can add in whatever else it is that you need to work on. And the biggest thing is really developing that mindset so that no matter what it is, the challenges that you're facing in your life, you're coming at it where you're putting in your 100% of the time, and you're coming at it from a place of always growth and opportunity, definitely removing the victimhood mentality, which I think so often we fall into.
Yeah. Talk about the victimhood mentality. I use that phrase a lot. I feel like it's just easier for some people. Society right now kind of sets it up that if you can say that you're a victim of something, that kind of absolves you of doing the work that you need to do, which a lot of times is just looking at yourself. So what do you think about how society is going right now in terms of people just being victim? It's almost like popular now to say, hey, this happened to me, so I should get a pass for the rest of my life.
So I think that when you choose the victimhood mentality, you're simply avoiding doing the work in the moment, but you are going to pay for it for the rest of your life. You will never be able to get over the issue that was put in front of you. And when you switch the mentality from whatever it is happened to me and poor me to this happened for me, and it is giving me an opportunity for me to grow beyond that, it gives you an empowerment, which is invaluable, and something that anyone that's experienced this and has actually gotten over something that they were a victim behind and experienced what it was to move into that place of power and overcome it, recognizes that they would never want to be that victim again. And so although I do agree that society is almost encouraging this a lot, it's something that I feel is only trapping you in that cloud. It's a toxic energy in itself. And as long as you're pointing all of your problems outward, you're never going to be able to grow inside and really strengthen past them and recognize that everything that happens in life is not really happening to you. It's people that do things that affect you in a negative way. It's never personal. They're dealing with their own things, and they're only developed to whatever level they're developed to. They may not understand what it is that they're doing. And so if you just remove them from the situation altogether and instead just reflect on yourself and where it is that you played a part, what it is that you can grow from this, and how you can maybe avoid it next time or handle it in a better situation, it develops you to be a better person, and you will live a better life.
Yeah. I was checking out your socials, and you're in great shape. You look like a lot of guys I do BJJ with. What was your introduction into fitness? Have you just always been athletic, or what was that
No,
like?
so I mean, sports was never a huge thing in my life, although I say that, but I recognized as I got older, I liked individual sports. So I did like boxing, swimming, skiing, snowboarding. And I guess in that sense, I have been active my whole life with those. I went into more, the fitness industry when I was about 18, but I was very off and on. And I was never really committed and dedicated in the way that I am now. And I,
Mhm.
at the time, figured, I think I just relied on my genetics a lot, and I relied
Yeah.
on the fact that I could sort of coast through and I would get good results. But as I started getting older, I started seeing, oh, these don't stick quite as well, they don't come back quite as quickly, and that food does sort of stick to you a bit more than it did before.
Yep.
uh, yeah, so from there, I really recognized it. And instead of looking for an end goal all the time where I want to look like this, I just fell in love with the process and the feeling that I got on a daily basis. And I think
Yeah.
when you get away from the result and you focus and fall in love with the process, that's where you really win, because there is no end game. There is no winning at life. There's just constantly stacking wins. And if you're doing that on a daily basis, the end result will take care of itself, and you'll never come to a place where you don't know what to do next, because you're always just focusing on that one step. That's
Yeah. I love that you said that, fall in love with the process, because it is a process. I think we're conditioned to see the finish, the six pack, the bikini, or whatever. You can lift all this weight, and we're not focusing on the steps to get you there. And I think when the way fitness is pitched to people is why they fail. It's definitely regrouping and starting from the beginning and just putting out some basic truth. This has got to be, like you said, a lifestyle change. You can't keep the same habits and expect those results. So I love that you talk about that. So your company is, tell me the name of your company. It's My Brother's Keepers. Are you strictly with
My brother's
men?
keeper coaching. Yes.
Okay. Are you doing mainly men, or is it men and women?
No, I mean, I definitely coach men and women. Getting into this, my primary purpose was to help develop grown boys into men,
Mhm.
because I recognized that that's what I was. And I
Mhm.
recognized that when I was able to elevate past that, how much better life got. And I see that in the world, if everybody was in this same position, how much better the world would get.
Yes.
And so that was my primary intention. But by all means, I have fantastic results working with women, and I really enjoy it. And it's the same general process. I mean, a lot of women out there are just girls, and it's the same fundamental reality. We need people to mature, and you don't necessarily grow into these adult people simply because you're chronologically aging.
Mhm.
We need to actually take responsibility for our lives and grow up.
I love that. What is your ideal client? If someone's listening to this, who's the person that's great for your program?
Whoever's ready to change. If you've recognized that your path is not serving you right, and you want that to end, and you want something more out of life, that you will feel more fulfilled, and you will be truly, feel joy in your insides. If you really want life to become what it's supposed to be, that's who I want to work with. I
Mhm.
want people that are ready and want it.
I detect a lot of spirituality in there. Is this spiritually based coaching, or is that just kind of your growth that kind of leads you to some of those talking points?
Specifically, I would say no, but I can't help but feel that life, has a spiritual component to it no matter what.
Yes, sir.
We are physical, but that's just like the vehicle that we are moving around this planet on.
Mhm.
And there's so much more to us. And so I think that it's impossible to not hit a spiritual component. And when you feel the difference spiritually in your life, I mean, you can't deny it.
Yeah, I love that. So, are you married? You have children? What's your current family situation?
I have no children. I have a fiance. We got engaged this past April, and things are going well.
How
Yeah.
does her energy help you in life?
So I would say that she's a balancing. She's a grounding for me. She's a support system. I can bring my struggles to her, and we can talk them out. She's also definitely not your standard yes man. Like if I bring something to the table that doesn't sit well, that could be a struggle. But the beauty of that is that she's also taught me that no matter what it is in life, if there is a conflict that needs to be brought up, go deal with that conflict. And the people that matter most in your life, they will be sitting back at that table with you, regardless of what the conflict is.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my life, I avoided those things with people who I valued because I was raised to see that you may lose those people if you bring those conflicts up. Mm-hmm. So I sort of wasn't necessarily true to myself, and instead, sort of just sheltered myself from that potential loss.
So it sounds like in many ways, me and you kind of had a similar upbringings in terms of the man's macho, being tough, maybe hiding feelings. I had a lady on my show 2 weeks ago who was a intimacy coach. And we were talking about how men don't feel comfortable being vulnerable a lot of times in relationships, and how it damages the relationships, because we're always, I think society says the man can't be weak. He's got to go out there and kill the T-Rex and bring it home, and the woman's supposed to do this. And we have these silly gender roles. In your involvement as a man, how do you address that to some guy who's sitting there saying, man, I like what these guys are saying, but I just can't figure out how to bring this to my lady?
I mean, I think that if you're unable to be your true vulnerable self, then you're not really owning your true masculinity anyhow. As long as you are hiding behind a wall, then you're not being your true self, and you're not being a true man. We need to be able to express whatever it is that we're living through. And so by saying that you can't bring it to your lady, that's showing a weakness in you. And if we're supposed to be these, superhero men, well, that has to include emotional maturity as well. It can't strictly be physical, so the bottom line is grab the bull by the horns and just do it. It doesn't matter what it is in life. If you have a challenge, my biggest thing is if I tell myself I don't want to, or I can't do this, my brain goes, shit, that's where we got to go. It's time to level up. We got to push through this. The reality is I hid from cameras my whole life. This was so foreign to me when I got into this. And the only reason that I got in front of the camera was because I recognized that in today's society, social media is how I'm going to be able to reach more people. It's how I'm going to be able to help more people.
What was the issue with the camera? Were you shy, or just didn't think
I really like the term shy, but I just avoided it. I avoided it for various reasons. But the bottom line is that I just grew up not liking being in photos, not liking being on video.
Is that about not liking, knowing who you were? You weren't really happy with who you were? Because a lot of people will say that. I just don't, because they would see themselves and really see themselves in the mirror.
I wouldn't doubt that there's a reflection of that.
Okay. That makes sense. All right. Now you're out there. You're all in the public.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what it came down to was, well, I don't feel comfortable doing this, but this is something I have to do. This is one of the phases of leveling up that I have to embrace, and I just got to go full out at it. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
Day one was, okay, I'm going to put out a video on my Instagram. And that first one felt monumental.
Yeah.
And then it became, now I'm going to do that every day.
Mm-hmm. You never know who's listening to you. And you never know who's listening to you, and you never know who you're inspiring. That's part of what we do. So that one person might be at a rock bottom and hear your video, and that gets them up.
And it is the 100% right there.
Yeah.
When the people reach out and tell me how they've not been drinking, they've not been doing drugs, they've been getting up early, they've been going to the gym, they've been making better food decisions, they want to be a better husband, a better father, a better man, a better woman, a better wife. It doesn't matter what it is. That fulfillment is worth all the discomfort that I went through. Tenfold, hundredfold. Like it's invaluable. Yeah. And so 100%, that is exactly it. If all of my content can just help one person in their life, it's all been worth it.
Talk a little bit about masculinity and femininity to you. What does that mean to you? Someone's asked you, what does that mean?
So the way that I've sort of broken this down into a visualization that's easy to understand is, I think if you take the yin and the yang symbol, and we take one half of that being the male and the other half being the female. On the male's end, I feel that we should be primarily solid. We are the foundation of our society. But that dot in the eye of the fish, or whatever it is that we want to represent it as, that would be like our water hole. And that's our emotional core. And we need that to be accessible at all times. This is when your child is born. This is when somebody is in pain and you're soothing them. We have to be able to go into that. If somebody's passed away and you need to express your sadness, you need to cry. This is us going into that hole. And it's the femininity, it's the balance to us. And often I think in previous generations, that hole got filled in. They lost touch with it. And they were not able to be a well-balanced man because of that. I do think that a lot of times in today's society, we get stuck in that hole and we get encouraged to continuously live in our sadness. And so we basically drown, where we have to also be able to get back out and dry back off, because I do feel that our core is being that male that we can actually uplift society. On the flip side of this, I feel that the feminine is primarily water. It's primarily that softness. It's the nurturer, it's the caregiver, it's the bringer of life. And then they have their island. That island is their solid spot. That's their mother bear protecting their young. That's their strength and their core being that they also need access to. If they lose that, then they're simply just pushovers in society, and they don't have that pillar of strength at their core. It's their rod, their iron core. The problem is, in today's society, I feel that often women are getting up on that island and they're drying out and they're losing their femininity. And then what we're getting is a society where both sides are sort of drying out or drowning in the opposite end of where we need to be typically living. And I think that's where we're getting a society where we don't have men properly demonstrating what it is to our boys to aspire to be. And we don't have women giving our children what it is that they need in their love, in empathy and compassion to raise all of our adults into true balanced humans.
Yeah. So in your background, there was some drug use. How did you get out of that? What did you have a mentor, or did you just get sick of being sick and tired?
So that was different phases of life. The alcohol was probably, the most prominent addiction in my life. That then would bring out other issues during, states of drunkenness.
Sure.
Those I sort of got control of to a varying degree throughout my life. The dogs helped a lot with that because it imposed the necessity to be responsible and be present. I couldn't be out drinking till 4 a.m. and deal with a bunch of puppies or go train these dogs to an elite level. And I sure couldn't be doing protection training at that point because, bad things would end up happening. So there was a series of, sort of waves. I mean, if you were to look at it, it'd be almost like a mountain range where I would make, improvements in different areas and have setbacks. And it wasn't until I heard my coach speak, who I ended up working with, who basically encouraged me to go into this as a lifestyle and to teach to others what I had accomplished, that he encouraged me to shed not only the drinking as a whole and sort of finalize that from my life, but also to stop smoking the weed. And weed was one that I was probably the biggest advocate for. I had started smoking when I was 12 years old, and I smoked on a daily basis pretty much since then. And I was highly functional to the point where, I could work longer hours than most people I knew, and they would be drinking 12 coffees a day, and I didn't drink coffee. And And like, you can't really tell me that this is so bad when I'm this functional compared to all these people that I'm surrounding myself with. But it wasn't until I stopped that I recognized the implications that it was actually having on my life.
Mm-hmm.
I had been numbing myself and lowering myself mentally on my, vibration to basically put me in a place that I could accept a life that I would not accept otherwise.
Gotcha.
And it was done in such a subtle and mellow way through Blazing that I didn't see it in this traumatic and dramatic way that you would see it with alcohol or a lot of other drugs. So
Yeah.
it was something that, I was able to accept and even argue. And well, it wasn't until it was fully removed that I could see what it was actually doing.
Mm-hmm. I think, especially in today's society, a lot of people are self-medicating. It's a way to kind of disengage from their lives and just, as a lot of people say, they just deal with it. They don't want to. This is how I deal with it. And a lot of people, unfortunately, that's their mechanism, And it seems like everyone seems to think they have it under control. I got it. I just have a drink after I get off work or on the weekends, and they're telling those lies to themselves. One of the big things I talk about with clients I have is that what you're saying to yourself, and people don't realize how powerful what you say to yourself is. Never mind what you're saying out in public. You can say anything, but what you're really saying to yourself. And that's why I was asking you about looking at yourself in the mirror, because someone asked me a long time ago, when you get up and look in the mirror, can you generally say, I like what I see? Not mainly physically, because you know everything you've done. No one knows better than you. But can you really look at yourself and go, I'm good? And the point was, the day you can do that, your life has changed. You've arrived to some other place where you can look at yourself and go, yeah, I'm good. If I die tomorrow, I'm good. Well, if you look at yourself and go, ooh, I got some work to do. And believe me, I've looked at myself and said, I got some work to do. What do you think about that?
I couldn't agree more. I think most people are hiding from the things that they have to be dealing with. And they chalk a lot of it up to fun with alcohol and drug use. And I don't think most people can really look at themselves in the mirror and say that they are actually proud to be the person that is staring back at them. Mm-hmm. And I think that if that's a place that you're in, it's not something to be shameful of. It actually just shows you where you can level up. Yes. And so if you just embrace that and you work towards it, you will break free from every single one of those issues. And, a lot of people, I think, get stuck in this mentality that other people have something inside them that they don't have. Mm-hmm. That person was able to overcome this trauma or become this person, and that they can't do that. But we're an incredible species, and we are very resilient. We are strong. And the day that you recognize that and you start working towards becoming the person that you will be most proud of, you will become that person. And, the way that I like to look at it is that the day you decide that you want to be that person and you start making those steps, you're already that person.
Yes, sir.
You might not see the actual realization of it yet, the physical effects or the changes in your life, but you're already them. You just have to stay on the path.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Definitely. So you're coaching now. You are busy with your life. You're a new fiance. What do you do when you got nothing going on? What's your downsides? What's your relaxing? What do you like to do? I know you mentioned surfing. I mean, not skiing, swimming. Is that you still do that for fun? How do you decompress? How do you take all of our shit off you?
I mean, so for me, decompress, a lot of that does come down to reading, journaling, meditating, working out. Mm-hmm. That's where my decompression happens. Just talking. Walking is a big one for me. I really enjoy walking. Yeah. I do still, it would be snowboarding at this point. I still do that, but it's something that I don't get to very often. And, I make time for it when I want to. So, I do prioritize those experiences when I feel that they've been lacking, or if it's something that in the moment I feel is worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, I stay so busy with my life, I don't have a lot of downtime. And, I don't view it as a negative because of the fulfillment and how good I feel. The reality is that the end of my day, I feel at least as good, if not better, than a day where I may have gone, shopping, skiing, swimming, whatever else it might be that people want to do in their day. I think so often we get convinced that it's these events that are making our day worth living, but my life is so worth living the way it is that I don't feel the need to go seek these external momentary experiences of pleasure.
Yeah.
Now, I do love eating, and so I still, I'd say food is another one.
Okay.
Although I balance that to be, within my macros and within my spectrum of health, but I do still get pleasure from that one.
Are you coaching yourself, or do you have somebody you check in with?
No, at this point, I mean, I have a network of people that we sort of are working in the same general direction, and we do it together. So there is some sense of checking in on each other. It's not as formal as it was when I first started. And this, I think, is really important. When I first started with my coach, I had originally signed up for 1 month. And 1 week in, I started thinking about when people would sign up with me for my dog training, if they did 1 month, at the end of that month, I would teach them a lot of information. They would really fundamentally understand what it is that they need to do with their dog. But if I'm to leave at that point, there's like a 99% chance that they're going to go back to their old behaviors.
Yep.
So as I was hitting that 1 week mark, and I recognized the benefits that were coming from this new lifestyle, and I saw the similarity in that, I called my coach and I said, can I level that up to a 1-year program? Because I was aware that when my clients stayed with me for a year, we basically went from, if you look at your brain as a forest, in a month, we've created a bike path through that forest. It's functional. You can get through the forest with ease. But if I leave, it just tends to grow back in really quickly. Well, by a year, if I've been going in, you've now basically downloaded my voice. So if something comes up, you hear me tell you, oh, you got to do that, or oh, you shouldn't be doing that. And then by a year in, not only have you downloaded my voice, but over that time frame, it's converted back to your voice in your head, telling you what it is and what it isn't you should be doing. So the message has changed from your old message, but it's back to being your voice. And we more or less have a paved highway running through that forest. Mm-hmm. In order for it to break down, you almost consciously have to go out there and destroy it. So gotcha. When I recognized this same pattern, I was like, I'm not risking this falling apart. I need to do this for 1 year with this man. And that's exactly how it worked. I downloaded his voice. I could hear him saying things. That voice is now my own again.
Excellent.
It's so built in that it's a life. It's my lifestyle.
Now, do you have dogs now?
I do not. It's been about going on 4.5 years since I sold my last dog. Okay. As a pre-trained package to a wonderful family. I am, in fact, making an exception for a previous client, and I'm going to be taking a little German Shepherd puppy in about 4 months for a 3-month package for them to train the puppy up to an advanced obedience. But,
okay, that's awesome. All right, so where can people find you?
So Instagram is definitely the easiest way to reach out to me. My Brother's Keeper Coaching is my IG handle. For people that are not on social media, I do have a website. It's www.mybrotherskeepercoaching.com. And I am on YouTube. I do have Facebook, but really Instagram and the website are the two easiest.
Okay. So is there anything you're promoting right now? Are you going to be anywhere special, or is it just, hey, living the life and find me on socials?
Just working through my process, helping people to develop themselves to be those people that they're most proud of, and just grinding.
I love it. Well, thank you for what you're doing. I mean, we need more people like you. And I love that I'm able to chat with guys like you. I usually take something away from everybody that I talk to. And I really like your concept of the day-to-day. That's resonating so much with the day-to-day, not the end, just the day-to-day. Because your end might change anyway. You never know what the end's going to be. It's the process. Absolutely. Yeah. All right, Steve. I appreciate you coming on. And everybody, stay tuned. We'll keep bringing good guests, and we'll see you on the next Coach's Corner. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.